Maybe you can tell us what happened. Because you are being accused that you murdered Eric Musyoka. Maybe you can tell us what happened. Were you involved? Did you do it in any way?
It was just after 5:30 a.m. in March 2014 when the silence of a sleepy neighborhood was broken in Machakos County. What was supposed to be an ordinary Thursday morning became the beginning of a nightmare. The first people to stumble upon Eric Makau Musyoka's body were locals on their way to work. They remembered the stillness of the scene, the kind of stillness that makes the air feel wrong. Lying by the roadside was a young man, barely 27 years old, motionless, lifeless. His clothes were disheveled, his shoes, oddly, were missing, and his body carried marks that spoke of violence. A boda rider, who was among the first to arrive, recalls the shock vividly. At first I thought he was drunk, maybe someone who had passed out, but when I got closer, I saw blood, and the way his head was lying, it was not normal. That's when I knew this was something bad.
Why could anyone do this to us? Why?
Hello and welcome back to Murder Mystery Kenya, your home for the deepest, most gripping true crime and mystery stories from right here in Kenya and beyond. First, a huge thank you to all our amazing subscribers. Your support means the world to us. Every like, every comment, and every share helps keep these incredible stories alive. If you're new here, karibu sana. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video, and drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts and theories. Your support helps us dig deeper, uncover the truth, and tell even more chilling stories you won't find anywhere else. Now, let's dive into today's mystery.
Before the headlines, before the betrayal, and before his tragic end, Eric Makau was just a boy from Machakos, a son, a brother, a friend. His story began far away from insurance papers and courtrooms. It began in a small village in Kangundo constituency, where life was simple and dreams were often bigger than the opportunities around. Eric Makau Musyoka was born in 1987, the second-born child in a humble household. His father, a casual laborer, and his mother, a dedicated farmer, raised him and his siblings with discipline, faith, and hope. Neighbors remember Eric as the boy who was always running, whether to fetch water, to help in the shamba, or to chase after a homemade football with friends. Eric attended local primary and later secondary school in Machakos. Teachers described him as intelligent, hardworking, and quiet, but with moments of charm when he spoke about his future. He often dreamed of becoming an entrepreneur, someone who could lift his family out of poverty. For many young men in rural Kenya, education was both an escape and a gamble. Eric's journey was no different. He managed to finish his O-levels, but like countless others, financial struggles forced him to put dreams of further education on hold. By his early 20s, Eric was working various casual jobs: construction, small trade, boda errands. He wasn't wealthy, but he was determined. Every shilling he earned, he shared with his family, especially his mother. Relatives recall that Eric was known for his generosity. He had very little, yet always found a way to give. To understand this story, we must understand the man at its center, Evans Masaku Kasyoki, not just an uncle, but a man whose career and ambitions would place him directly at the crossroads of money, family, and betrayal. Born and raised in Machakos, Evans Masaku Kasyoki projected the image of a respectable family man. In the eyes of his neighbors, he was quiet, calculated, and always well presented. He had built a reputation of success, working in the world of insurance, a career that for many symbolized stability and financial security. But for those who worked with him, there was something else about Evans, a sharp mind that never missed an opportunity, and a persuasive tongue that could sell any policy to anyone. For years, Evans was employed at ICEA Lion Group, one of Kenya's leading insurance companies. His role, an insurance agent, to outsiders, it might have seemed like a modest job, but in reality, Evans had discovered something most people overlooked. Insurance was not just about selling policies, it was about knowing how to use them. A colleague described him this way: he was exceptionally good at his job. Evans could sit with anyone, a farmer, a teacher, even a boda rider, and convince them why life insurance mattered. But beneath that charm, he also understood every loophole in the system. If you worked in insurance long enough, you'd realize he knew exactly how to play the numbers. At ICEA, Evans gained access to insider knowledge, how claims worked, how payouts were processed, and more importantly, how to structure multiple policies without immediately raising red flags. On paper, Evans was thriving, but behind the polished image of an insurance agent was a man who seemed increasingly obsessed with money. Those who knew him closely would later say he was always looking for the next big thing, something that would change his fortunes overnight. And perhaps that's why, years later, investigators would look back at his career in insurance, not as a coincidence, but as a window into a darker plan.
No, nimekutafuta sana. Ni kuhusiana na mauaji ya Eric.
I never did it. Don't know that story very well.
March 14th to 15th, 2014. In the villages around Kangundo, Machakos County, dawn usually brings chores and small talk. That morning, it brought a discovery that would shatter a family and unsettle an entire community. The body of Eric Makau, also recorded in some reports as Eric Makau Musyoka, was discovered in a small thicket near his parents' home in Kangundo. The spot was just a few meters from the family compound, close enough that every villager would later whisper the same question: how could a killing happen so near to safety? It was local people, the early risers of the village, who came upon the body. They weren't searching for him. They stumbled across him on the path. What should have been a passing glance became a scene that froze them where they stood. Those first on scene noticed the truth immediately. Eric lay motionless. There were visible injuries to his head. His clothing was disordered. The proximity to the household made the discovery feel more than violent. It made it personal. This wasn't a body abandoned on a road far from home. It was placed near the place he belonged. The discovery of Eric Makau's body was clean in its horror and immediate in its consequences. A sealed scene, a grieving family, and a file opened by the authorities. But discovery is never the end of a story. It is only the first chapter. It marks the point where life stops and leaves the hardest questions still unanswered. Who, how, and why? The post-mortem confirmed what was feared. Eric had died from severe head injuries inflicted by a blunt object. There was no question, it was a deliberate, violent act. When blunt force trauma is so pronounced, it speaks beyond mortality, it speaks of intention. This was no accident or misfortune, it was an act of malice. Investigators soon uncovered a trail of paperwork that would change the course of this case. Multiple life insurance policies had been taken out in Eric Makau's name just days before his death. One policy was valued at 1 million Kenyan shillings with Jubilee Insurance. Another far larger was worth 8 million Kenyan shillings with AIG Insurance. Combined, the covers amounted to nearly 9 million Kenyan shillings, and the beneficiary, his own uncle, Evans Masaku Kasyoki. This paperwork became the cornerstone of the inquiry. The timing, new, high-value insurance policies, followed almost immediately by a violent death, created a clear financial motive investigators could not ignore. But suspicion alone was not enough. The investigation turned to the documents themselves. Media reports and police inquiries highlighted irregularities in the claims paperwork and even in death certificate documents. Some forms bore conflicting serial numbers, others contained handwriting that raised red flags. Forensic document examiners and handwriting experts were called in. They compared signatures, checked forms, and noted strikingly similar handwriting patterns across multiple documents. What began as suspicion of shady paperwork was now transformed into tangible, testable forensic evidence, the kind admissible before a court and undeniable before insurers. Next, investigators turned to mobile network data. Safaricom's call detail records and tower pings, analyzed by data experts, painted a damning picture. On the night Eric was killed, the suspect and the victim were in the same location. This wasn't guesswork, it was digital evidence, time-stamped and independently verified. The mobile data became a powerful piece of circumstantial evidence, placing Kasyoki with Eric in those final, fatal hours. Investigators also cast a wide net for witnesses. They spoke with family members, neighbors, insurance fraud investigators, document examiners, mobile analysts, doctors, and civil registry officers. By the time the case reached court, nearly 20 witnesses had testified. Each offered a fragment of the puzzle. Some provided context on motive, others on means or opportunity, and the technical experts tied it all together with evidence that corroborated the prosecution's narrative. In a circumstantial case, every stream of evidence matters, and here they converged. Then, in August 2018, the case exploded into the public eye. Citizen TV aired an expose titled #Murder for Profit. The broadcast laid bare the insurance anomalies, the suspicious documents, and the chilling allegation that Eric had been killed for money. The impact was immediate. The Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP, Nordin Haji, ordered urgent legal steps. Members of the public, recognizing the suspect from TV, spotted him at Thika Road Mall. Within hours, Evans Masaku Kasyoki was arrested. The arrest was more than a symbolic victory. It allowed law enforcement to secure and preserve key documents, conduct interrogations under caution, and formally request forensic materials from insurers and public offices. It also locked the suspect into the legal process. Shortly after, the courts ordered a mental evaluation at Mathari Hospital, a standard procedure to determine fitness to stand trial. Meanwhile, prosecutors secured bail terms, which shaped how investigators continued refining the case, whether Kasyoki was in custody or out on bond. But the investigation did not stop with the arrest. Years into the proceedings, prosecutors sought to strengthen their case further. In 2024, they requested to call senior bank employees as new witnesses, tracing money trails and probing insurance claim records that had never been fully explored. The Machakos High Court agreed, reopening the prosecution's case. Because in a murder-for-profit scheme, financial forensics is everything. Bank logs, insurance claim communications, and beneficiary payment trails reveal the ultimate truth: who stood to gain, how they tried to claim it, and where the money was meant to go. The investigation spanned years, It involved science, testimony, media pressure, and financial tracing. But at its heart, it returned to a hauntingly simple question. Was Eric Makau killed so someone else could cash a check? Key evidentiary pillars investigators relied on: summary 1. Forensic pathology, post-mortem showing blunt force trauma. 2. Insurance paperwork, multiple policies and beneficiary listings. 3rd, document examination, alleged forged or irregular documents, death certificate anomalies. 4. Telecom call data, Safaricom analysts' location, call records linking suspect and victim. 5. Witness testimony, family, neighbors, insurance investigators, handwriting experts, medical and registry officers. And so, despite the chilling details of insurance fraud, mounting circumstantial evidence, and the suspicion that swirled around him, Evans Masaku Kasyoki remains legally free. The High Court granted him bail set at 3 million shillings with matching sureties. To this day, he walks as an innocent man in the eyes of the law, awaiting the slow grind of Kenya's justice system. For the family of Eric Makau, it is a bitter reminder that justice delayed often feels like justice denied. In the end, what remains is not just a life cut short, but a silence that lingers. Eric Makau's death is more than a murder. It is a mirror reflecting the shadows within our society. Love twisted into greed, trust turned into betrayal, and promises of forever reduced to numbers on an insurance policy. Evans Masaku Kasyoki walks free on bail, but freedom does not erase suspicion. For Eric's family, the wounds remain open, waiting, aching, demanding justice. In the quiet of the night, one question refuses to die: who truly profits from a man's death?